Okay, hi everybody. And today I have my great friend and work colleague, online friend really, Samantha Nolan Smith, who I have had the pleasure of meeting in real life. And she is a beautiful business alignment coach and leadership mentor. She's the founder and host of the podcast Change the Game, which supports women to build businesses in alignment with their inner worlds and informed by energy of the feminine. Samantha's passionate about women becoming more visible and more vocal, and her flagship program, The Age of Visibility, helps coaches, creatives and female entrepreneurs step out of the shadows and share their message with the world. Thank you so much for joining us today, Samantha.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Now, when I asked Samantha about this interview, I think we had like a list of things that we could have talked about. But I thought that visibility was a really great topic, and one that's probably, I think everybody knows that they need to be more visible, but I think that there are still things holding women back, obviously particularly women in business. So I wanted to talk about that. So thank you so much for being here.
It's absolutely my favorite topic. So I love the opportunity to talk more about it.
Perfect. Okay. So let's just start with women in business, because obviously that's our, the women that we are serving. They go into business and then they hide. They hide behind their business. They hide behind their brand. And I think that this is probably something that women have seen go on in the corporate world, where, you often don't see the face behind the brand. But that's not really working for solo entrepreneurs or women in business. So why do women do this, and what do they need to do instead?
They do it, I think there are multiple reasons why we're doing this. And I think the first thing at the macro level is to really understand that we're hiding as women because traditionally it has been dangerous not to hide. Whenever we've been really visible in the masculine realm, and that could be church, state, business, we have been punished on some level. And so you can go back as far as like the witch hunts, and when women presented a different form of spirituality, the church completely freaked out, and we had 400 years of being persecuted there.
Yeah.
We go into, something much more contemporary like the 20th century, and we see the suffragettes fighting to get the right to vote and speak, and we see them being beaten in the streets. And then we get to really contemporary, and we see people like Prime Ministers Thatcher in the UK and Julia Gillard in Australia, and we see, presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, and we see the way that they're treated. We hear literally all three of those have been told, we don't like your voice is irritating to us, where we see them their characters being torn apart. And everybody gets the message to be really visible as a woman in society, you are going to suffer on some level. And you alluded to it when you spoke about in the corporate world, what we've done as we moved out of the homes and we said, actually, we want to be in the workplace as well. And this was really through the, second wave of feminism through the 70s. We then got a very, very clear message from business, which was, if you want to succeed here, then you basically need to look like a man, speak like a man, and operate like a man. And that just didn't work for women. No. It didn't work at all. You needed the structure that men had in order to do well in that space, which was you needed a wife at home who was taking care of all of the domestic responsibilities, which is why then so many of us have then said, no, that doesn't work either. We're going to go into our own businesses, and thank God for the internet and the way that we've moved in there. But we've taken all this baggage with us.
Yeah.
And so we are we're the pioneers of learning how to be visible and be safe in that space. And so we go into our own businesses. We've got all of this kind of consciousness hanging over us. We still have women in the world who are being shot in the face for asking to be educated. We still have situations every day where women in Australia are being killed by their partners for speaking up against the males in their households. So this is quite serious. The issue of visibility is a very serious one, and it infuses the way that we operate our businesses. So that's kind of the broadest perspective of what's going on. But then you and I, Sylvia, we were taught to be good girls. We were taught to fit in, yes, we were told that we could do anything, but we were also told other messages about the way that we should, strive to achieve the things that we want to achieve. And so we've taken all of that and we've got this incredibly confusing situation where we're like, how do I be visible and still be the good girl and still please everybody else? And we see the model of business leadership that some men adopt. And I always think I have a lot of respect for somebody like Gary Vee, for example. And at the same time, I often use him as an example of,
very polarizing, isn't he?
Very masculine, very testosterone, very visible.
Yeah.
And that model just doesn't work for many women either, because they look at that and they think, I can't be like that.
Yeah.
And so what's the alternative? We sort of come back into ourselves and we hope that people notice us. We hope that we're not offending anybody by asking them for the sale, and so it goes on.
Yeah. And it's also just that, women will say, I'm too scared to be on camera. Like it'll just manifest into all these things. I don't want to put my face out there. People are telling them all the time, you should get more ranty because that's the way that you'll attract the right people. But then women just don't really, as you said, don't want to offend anyone and don't want to hurt anyone. It's not, generally in our nature. So it's just this really mixed message. And it's like women are just kind of then just going, well, if I don't know what to do, then I'm not going to do anything. And I'll just play it small and I'll just get busy doing my work.
Exactly, which is what we've always done well, which is why we do well at school, because we, as girls, we're very good at being told what to do and then living up to meeting expectation or exceeding expectation. That's why we make great employees as well. Yeah. And it's a very different game when you move into business. Yeah. This message around, get ranty because people will, you'll get more attention. That is a knife edge of a thing to play as a woman, because on the one hand, if you express an opinion and you're bold, you're told that that's what you need to do. On the other hand, you can just tip over to this point where people say you're too aggressive. Yeah. I don't like that. The same behavior in a man would be completely acceptable, but in a woman is, oh no, now she's gone too far and we're not going to listen to her anymore. And, Clinton was like, it's just like PhDs that people could write for 100 years about the treatment of Hillary Clinton. But, one of the things that she was told all the time is smile more. Stop being so aggressive, stop being so assertive. And she would continue to say, this is what you want from a president. But this model is so difficult for us to overcome, of woman as either mother, ideal perfect mother. We had this is one model that we've been told is acceptable for us. Or Anne Summers wrote a great book in the 1970s called Damned Whores or God's Pleas. And the other area that we always were very visible in is the area of sexuality and prostitution and so forth. And where that filters down for us is appearance becomes hugely important for women. And so a lot of women say, well, I don't want to get on camera because I'm judging myself for my appearance or for the way my voice sounds, or I'm too fat, or I'm too skinny, or I'm blah, blah, or I'm this, I'm that, my head somehow doesn't look, whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think that the trouble also is that often the one shooting the other woman down is a woman. I could just, we talk about sisterhood and sistership and all of that kind of thing and banding together, but oftentimes it's women being really harsh. And I can't tell you I got so sick of hearing about Hillary's pantsuits. It was like the only topic of conversation was what she was wearing, and how bad she looked. And it was like, she's running for president and they're worried about her pantsuits. And it was often women doing this to each other. And so it's just very easy for women to come back and go into their shell. Now, I want to ask you, is it possible really to run a successful online business and not be visible, to really just to do your work, to serve your clients, maybe to have a great visual brand that supports you, but not actually have your face out there?
I think it depends on what you're doing with your brand. So if you're running a personal brand, which is what a lot of people in your community are doing, My personal view is you have to be out there on some level. You have to be willing to be seen and to be heard for what you stand for and what your brand is all about, because that's how people connect with you. If they don't know what your brand is about and you're running a personal brand, then how can you expect them to want to do business with you?
Yeah.
You can, of course, run a brand in the way that, Coca-Cola has run a brand, and, corporations traditionally ran brands where there were lots of people behind the scenes, and the brand spoke for itself. I see a little bit of that working in the online space. For example, Simple Green Smoothies, which many people might know, and if you don't, you can sort of Google it. They really became visible by sharing their recipes on Instagram. And so it wasn't so much pictures of them or their kids or their, anything like that. And they weren't necessarily revealing huge amounts about themselves, but they were incredibly visible as a brand. Yeah. And then they interspersed a little bit of themselves in there. So if you look at their feed, for example, a really quick way to do it is look at their feed and you'll see beautiful picture after beautiful picture of fruits and, vegetables and things, and then very occasional picture of them. Yeah. So I think that you can do it. You certainly don't. What has happened is women seem to have got the impression that I need to tell everything about myself and I need to reveal every last secret about my life. And that's how I connect with my audience. And I think that we need to decide for each of us where we sit on the spectrum. I don't think visibility it's not optional. It's imperative. And the way that you choose to do that, and what you choose to keep hidden, what you choose to reveal, is up to each business owner to decide their level of comfort with that.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, as you were pointing out, you don't have to share everything. And I'm very particular. I don't share anything about my kids and my family on social media. I just don't. And I know a lot of people do. Their whole social media is just their whole life and their children and their family. So do you I'm assuming that there is no right and wrong there and it's up to you. Do you think it really makes a difference if you're bringing in your entire life into your brand?
I think if that's the brand that has really worked for you, in the sense that people have this voracious appetite to learn more about people. Yeah. And so this is why trashy magazines sell, because everybody's slightly voyeuristic. They want to know more and more and more. And that is not necessary to build a successful brand. You can absolutely have very clear boundaries around my private life is my private life. So it's what expectation you've set up from the beginning. If you set up an expectation that you have full access to me and I tell you everything about my life, then your community is going to expect more and more and more of that. I don't feel comfortable sharing about my children on social media. I occasionally share a photo, and normally it's like you don't see their whole face even. Yeah. And that's the extent to which I'm comfortable with sharing about my family. Yeah. That's because they're children. And they deserve the right to consent or not consent to being visible in the world. That's my perspective as a mother. I have chosen to be the one that is visible. Yeah. And, my husband's very, very behind the scenes. I don't, have photos of him. I don't share things about him either. And that works for me and works for my community, because I have never said anything. I've never set the expectation any differently with my community.
Yeah, same with me. Yeah. Same with me. And I think the people who are thinking that they have to get out there and be visible and drag the whole family along with them need to understand that they don't have to. It's totally your choice. And my kids are now getting older and they will be like, no, don't you put anything about me on social media, because they're just so embarrassed. They don't want to be associated with me. They just want to pretend that they're orphans. So you don't have to. So I think that's a really important message for everybody to know that how much visibility you put out there is totally up to you. So it's important to put yourself, but you don't have to bring in everybody else along with you to create a great visible brand.
And in fact, often if you do that too much, you get so self-absorbed and family oriented and you're sharing all of that, you lose customers and clients and community because they're like, isn't this supposed to be about us?
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so if you're oversharing to the point where you've forgotten who you're serving, then you've gone too far.
Yeah. And if you're a parenting coach or if you're a mumpreneur, not mumpreneur, like a mum, a businesswoman who serves mothers,
yes,
then maybe that's appropriate. But for my business, I don't feel that it is, and you're probably feeling the same way.
No, exactly. So again, it's the what topic am I under? What makes me feel comfortable? What feels comfortable for my family? Have I spoken to my family even about this? Have I got their permission?
Yeah.
And then what expectations have I set up with my community around this?
Yeah, cool. Now, the big question that comes up often when we're talking about visibility is, well, I'm an introvert and I cannot go on video and I stutter and I don't know what to say and I just don't think anyone's listening anyway. So what do you say about the introvert and visibility and how they can be combined to, so that women are still able to put their face out there?
I think it's really important. I'm an introvert as well. I'm pretty extreme on the introvert scale, actually. I really like spending a lot of time like that. And I think it's really important to remember that shyness and introversion are not the same thing.
Yes.
You and I are both pretty confident introverts.
Yeah.
And shyness is about, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be heard. They can definitely go together. And for a long time in my life, they sat side by side. But introversion is about, where do I get my energy from? And I am either getting my energy from, like I just said, working in a space where I'm pretty much by myself. I've got lots of alone time. I generate it internally. So I'm checking in with myself. I'm feeling in with my own inner guidance. And then I'm going out to the world and sharing that. That's what an introvert's world. An extrovert loves being in company and gets all their juice and all their energy from being around other people. So working in an organization actually works really well for extroverts because they're around people all the time and they're getting more and more energized as the day goes on. That's very different to, can I be seen for what I stand for, what my brand stands for? Can I get up in public? Can I do interviews? Can I do speaking gigs? Can I have a podcast or a video or whatever? All of that is completely under the control of an introvert. And that's why introverts actually do very well in the internet space, because you've got complete control over how much engagement you have with people. You can get on social media, you can be engaged with people for a little while, then you can shut it down and come back to yourself. Yeah. You can't really do that in an environment where you're working and you've got 100 people on the floor and so forth, unless you've got an office and you can shut your door and you can just come back into yourself a little bit. Often introverts will say, I'm much more comfortable standing on a stage and speaking to 100 or 1,000 people than I am going to a party with 50 people at it. So I think it's really important to remember introversion, not to use introversion as an excuse. To understand it's again about boundaries. It's about recognizing, okay, if I know I'm an introvert and I'm going to a conference, for example, where I'm presumably going to be talking to a lot of people, I'm going to be much more visible than I am like in a day-to-day basis in my office. How am I going to structure that so that it works for me? One of the things I always do at conferences is I always get my own room so that I can go back to my room and I can just the same person. I can chill out for a little while.
I can't share with anybody because I just need that space to go and decompress.
Yes, exactly. But then that gives me that control of saying, okay, that's my time to decompress. Then I can go back out and I can be more visible. I can be more engaged. I can be more connected. And then I can go back again to my room and get that balance right. So I think if you're feeling shy, that's something to work on. Absolutely. That's something that there are probably some blocks there that need clearing, so that the confidence, natural confidence that every human being is born with and then slowly gets, filtered away a little bit. So that can naturally shine through, and then understand where I get my energy from and create the right kinds of environments to keep fueling myself.
Yeah, totally. And I always, when I start to use the introvert as an excuse to not be as visible, I pull myself out of it by saying what needs to be heard, what do other people need. And so just putting that in front of, well, I'm just feeling shy today, or I have a pimple on my face and I don't want anyone to see me, or anything like that. So it's just bringing it back to the message and what is it that you want for your tribe or for your audience.
I think we have a tendency as introverts, we can become more and more and more insular and forget about the service piece.
Yeah.
And so when we're coming from the heart, we're operating our businesses in genuine service to our community, then that every day of the week will overcome that tendency to move inward. That will move us outward in the right kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now what are just maybe one or two or three simple things that women can do to lift their confidence and to stop hiding in the shadows, to kind of just get, if some women are in a funk, or they are genuinely choosing to not be visible, what is it that they can do to kind of shift that and to bring back some confidence to themselves so that they can really go out there and serve?
I think self-awareness is the key. I think recognizing, first of all, that I probably have some inner work to do. I need to become familiar with my stories that I'm telling myself, and I need to have tools, or I need to get a coach or something to help me with overcoming those stories. That's first and foremost. I asked some people in my program, The Age of Visibility, what were their fears around visibility, and the myriad of answers was incredible. It was, from I'm afraid of being attacked, I'm too fat, I'm afraid of being judged, I'm afraid of succeeding, I'm afraid of being visible, to my family, I'm afraid of not getting it right, I'm afraid of trying and failing. Just the number of things. So first of all is that awareness of, what is it for me? What are some of the things that are really holding me back? And we have so many tools now to help us to clear that and to move beyond those stories. So that's the first thing. I absolutely think that's important. But I also see so many women using the inner block story as an excuse for just not taking action. And the reality of that is that we just feel uncomfortable, and we then go, rather than being able to sit in the discomfort and then take action, we go, oh, I've hit a moment of discomfort, I'm going to hide again. And it's all about my blocks. And so I'll spend the next 20 years clearing my blocks before I take any action. And that's why I mentioned at the top of our conversation about the structural, much bigger circumstances that are at play here. It's really important to recognize we live in a patriarchal society. We live in a society which has silenced us for generation after generation after generation. We're pioneers. We're, of course, on the leading edge of visibility and business. And that's going to involve some level of discomfort at certain points. So imperative to have a community around you, imperative to have women around you who are in the same boat as you, who are going through the same thing as you. I am a huge believer in the sisterhood and finding sisters who will support you, who will cheer you on when you are like, I cannot go out there and, put myself out there again. Having those people around you is imperative. Of course, we have to create the same thing as the old boys club, which is is the girls club. That's really important. I think that this, starting with small steps, is really, really useful. It's not comparing yourself to the person that's been in business for 10 years, who's incredibly comfortable with, being visible. It's saying, where am I now? And what's the next small step I can take toward visibility? Now, for some people, that might be, I do my first Facebook Live, stream. Or for others, it might be, I put my first blog post out there. Or for others, it's going to be, I start a podcast, or I approach somebody about being interviewed. Small step. Stop comparing yourself. Value where you are now. Take appropriate action. And then I think the other thing that's really important for us all as a community is to amplify each other. And so there was this wonderful article that came out. I came aware of it through the campaign process. I don't know if it came out earlier than, when the US elections were being held last year, but there was an article about women operating in the White House under Obama. And Obama's known on record, I'm a feminist, I care about women's rights, I really, want to promote women. And still what they discovered in that environment, that pro-women environment, was that when women were sitting in meetings at the White House, they would say something and then the men would talk over the top and then the men's ideas would get taken up. And at some point, one of the women said, we're not being heard. We're literally not being heard in these, like they're going, yeah, and then going on to their own opinions. And so they created this thing called the amplification, experiment or project or whatever, where one woman would say an idea and then another woman would repeat the idea and back it up. And then a third woman would repeat the idea and back it up again. And it took these 3 times of repeating it in order for the men to hear it for the first time. So this amplification effect is very, very important if we want to, we're all operating by and large as women for women. But if we want to go out and affect the mainstream, which will be the next phase of our community's movement, if you like, we need to amplify each other. That means backing each other. That means supporting each other. That means carrying these same messages and interviewing one another and, all of these things. So if you can find some people that you can amplify with, you can amplify them, they can amplify your messages. If you can find a supportive small group of people, if you can understand that you're living in a structural, systemic environment that has traditionally been trying to silence you for a long time and face that for what it is, know that that's going to cause you both internal issues and some external ones, and then use the amazing tools we've got to nevertheless be clear and be confident about who you are and about what your message is, then that's what we've got at the moment. That's where we are. And we then create the future for our daughters and their daughters and so forth. And our daughters and their daughters are going to go, oh, why didn't you do more? Or why didn't you, how are you so limited? And that's where we say, well, we're the daughters of the women who fought to even get into the workplace in the first place.
Yeah. And I think it's a great way for our daughters to see that, you can, create something on your own and have it serve your clients and also serve you and your family. And it's a really beautiful thing. I love it.
I can't, nothing gives me greater pleasure than my daughter seeing me go to work.
Yeah.
And be of service to people. I really love giving her that model.
Yeah.
And also being a great mum and being around for her and picking her up from school. And I like that balance, and I like that I have a very supportive husband who does the same. So I love giving her the opportunity to see that her dad also picks her up from school, and he also plays with her, and he also, spends time away from the office.
Yeah. It's fantastic. And I think that we hopefully are starting to come out of that masculine competition where, I think that the green-eyed monster can probably come up, if you see someone else being fabulous online and you think you're not cutting it. But as you said, if we can get together and, raise each other up instead of being in competition as we've been trained to be, then things can really start to shift. And I love talking to I think people find it quite interesting that I will interview other money coaches, or I will have friends who are in finance and stuff as well. It's like we're supposed to be hating on each other or in competition with each other, which is just crazy. But that's just how it's been in the masculine world. It's like whoever's the loudest and the strongest, and women just don't naturally operate that way. So bringing all of this together, being visible, being together, and rising up, we can start to achieve amazing, amazing things.
I think we really underestimate how much we're transforming the world and the business world. We're starting, you and I and the people that we're speaking with now, we're in the business world, and there are other things going on in other parts of the world. But this is why I call my podcast Change the Game, because we are literally changing the game of business, where as women we're saying that competitive model is horrid. It doesn't work. I'm not going to climb over every single individual to get to the top. I don't even want to operate in a kind of hierarchical pyramid kind of structure. I want to work in circles. I want to work collaboratively. And so we sometimes don't give ourselves credit for the shifts that we're making by modeling a new way of doing business, this new way of thinking about things. And I think that it's easy for us because, as you say, we've been trained in the competitive model. It's easy for us to fall back into that from time to time. And that's fine. That's okay. Of course, we're going to do that from time to time. Of course, we're going to fall back in, and then we're going to move forward again. And then we're going to remember, oh no, that doesn't need to be the way. Actually, there is a new model that's forming. And so as we're shifting, we'll flip-flop back and forth between remembering and forgetting and remembering and forgetting. And then eventually this new model that we are all a part of creating will be the norm.
Yeah.
And there'll be some old dinosaurs that'll still be hanging out in the, in the old competitive model, and eventually they'll realize, oh,
yeah, it's not working either.
Yeah, I'm the only one left who thinks
Yeah.
this is the way to operate in the world.
Yeah. Well, this is fabulous. Thank you so much for this fabulous information. I hope that this has spurred women on to really find that voice, find that confidence, and to really bring themselves more into their business and become more visible. Now, if people want to know more about you, Sam, where can they find you, your podcast, your programs, and your website?
So the podcast is Change the Game, which you can just find by typing that into, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. And the main website is samanthanolan.smith.com. I'm on, social media, all the platforms pretty much under either Sam Nolan Smith or Samantha Nolan Smith. Mm-hmm. But you go to my website and everything funnels out from there. It's very easy.
Yeah. And your beautiful program, The Age of Visibility, which is around this subject. So if women are interested in knowing more about that,
they go to theageofvisibility.com or they funnel through samanthanolan.smith.com.
Yeah. Perfect. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as always. And
thank you, Sylvia.
and we'll see you again soon.
Love that. Thank you. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.